Well, good evening again. I'm coming back on. Had a question asked me, and so this is a little biblical, a little historical about resurrection. And when somebody asks me how I know, how I can be have so much faith that does not believe in the Bible or believe in God, sometimes it's kind of you have to sit back and kind of look and say, well, how do I explain that? And so that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give a little bit about some of the history of resurrection, some of the other religions that believed it, and why I can depend on what I believe more than anything that's been in the history even before Christ. And hopefully it'll give you a little bit of knowledge, and we'll let people see where I come from when I said that, even in my condition, I have no fear, because I know that everything that God has promised me is going to come true. And that's what I'm standing on. I have historical evidence that actually shows that Jesus did arise. And we're going to talk about a little of that. So I'm going to start out first telling a little bit about the history. So I had to go back and I had to actually go pull out some references. And one of the things they bet is, I got looking here and what it said, even in some of the older Western religions, they were some that believed in mortality. Homer opens with a version of a soul being cast into Hades. And you think, man, what a way to open up. Is that your only hope? And then you go on down and you get looking at some of the things. And so the people that believed what Homer said, we also had some that believed that death meant a passage to a dreary world, a shadow pass in time, weary, meaningless wanderings. Can you imagine that's all you had to live for? Is when you kick the bucket, all you're going to do is wander around in a dreary place and nothing, no joy, no happiness. But that's actually what some people believe. And some believe that the only immortality you could have is the name you made for yourself. Well, boy, that wouldn't be very good to me, because I can't say that I've ever made a name for myself or done anything special. So I wouldn't have nothing to be remembered about. But here, when we go on down, the Romans, now they had many explanations. They believed you had to develop a name for yourself, and if you didn't, they had a lot of, and I have seen this actually on a Roman tomb when we were in Bulgaria, and it's all capital letters, NFFNSNC. And I didn't know what that meant when I was in Bulgaria. I just found that out today, what it is. And it's a Latin phrase, which means I was not, I was, I am not, I care not. I mean, they had no hope. So every one of these that I've been looking at is really kind of sad. Now, Virgil's Aeneid, the poet, described the dead carried across the river by the Sphinx by a boatman, Charon, to face court, which send them either to the left, to Tartarus, to a place of punishment, or to the right, to the, and if I pronounce it right, Elysian fields, for they were rewarded with beautiful existence. The philosophical school of pathologians adopted a view as part of their doctrine. The first really thing that started showing any proof was during Judaism. And you can even find in the Old Testament places and references that God made, even in Daniel, where it says that they'd be raised up. There's lots of references in the Old Testament to talk about a hereafter and being raised up after death. So that's kind of where it started. Then we get on up in and we look at the Pharisees. Of course, the Pharisees believed there's a resurrection. The Sadducees believed they wasn't. There's always arguing. They even tried to trick Christ into taking sides, and that's where he even said some things. When you go into heaven, neither will there be marriage or stuff like that in heaven, because we're going to be his bride. So Jesus himself said it. Jesus made promises. Remember, he said, when I go to my Father's house where there are many mansions, and I go to prepare a place for you, and if I go, I'll come back and get you. It's not word for word, but that's pretty close. So he's promised. We have in Hebrews where we talk about the resurrection. And sometimes we just need to go back and look and think about it. So here's the one I like. Old Testament. Jesus pointed out that God had said to Moses, I am the God of Abraham. Because God said, I am, rather than I was, proves that the long dead Abraham still was self-conscious and alive. Now I want you to look at them two words. God said, I am, not I was. Wow. Even God himself said, there is a resurrection. Abraham is still alive. As they tried to trick Jesus, what I mentioned, they neither marry or give in marriage. That's in Mark 12:25. The saints that died in their faith have a better country. It says the city of God one day found. It's in Hebrews. It's not word for word, but it's Hebrews 11:8-16. So I give you these things so you can go back and verify them. There's lots of really neat things. Even in Isaiah 25:8, one day death will be defeated, and your dead will live as their bodies rise from the earth and give birth to the dead. Think of that. Daniel, very explicit. Those who sleep in the dust of the earth will awake, some to everlasting life, some to everlasting shame and contempt. So you think of just these few verses that I just spoke of. And, I know a lot of people don't believe in the Bible. Boy, I'm going to talk to and going to be talking to about this is somebody who don't believe in the Bible. He don't believe in God. So how can I explain to him? Well, first of all, every one of these old ones that believes in one of these old resurrections, where it be everything from Egyptian to any of the Easterns, any of the reincarnation or any of that, there has never been anybody that actually seen it and testified that there was a resurrection or a reincarnation. They have no witnesses. But I want you to think about it. Jesus, he died on the cross. He was put in the tomb. He rose on the third day. He wasn't in the tomb no more. And they have a historical record in the Bible of over 500 people seeing him afterwards. The disciples saw him. We have actual witnesses. Now people say, well, that's just what they wanted because they didn't want nobody to believe a lie. You think these disciples are going to give up their lives for a lie? I don't think so. At 500. You look at Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Matthew, Mark, and John were disciples. Luke was a physician. He decided to take it on himself to go out just like a reporter and get the real story, and he did. He wasn't even with Jesus when this happened. He went out as a reporter, was sending a report back to Theophilus. We have witnesses. It ain't no different than we have witnesses of Civil War and what happened there, or other historical things. I wasn't there. I didn't see the Civil War. I wasn't there at the founding of this country, but we have witnesses that what happened, so we believe it. You know what? I look in this Bible, I have witnesses. I have witnesses that show me that God done these things. I have all these things that was put in there for my benefit and to increase my faith. How can I know what's coming? Can I tell you what's on the other side when I take my last breath? No, I can't. I can't tell you what death's going to be like. I'm going to find out. We all will sooner or later. Bible says it's for once appointed for all men to die. That's every one of us. None of us are getting out of it. But do I have that faith that wherever I go, I'm going to be with my Jesus. He's made promises. He keeps his promises. He cannot lie. And if you belong to him and you've accepted that free gift of salvation from him, you'll have it too. Just wanted you to think about it. Do I wonder what it's going to be like? Sure I do. When I take my last breath. Hey, will they be this nice, peaceful light? Will Jesus come reach out with his hand to get me? Will he send an angel for me? I don't have a clue. All I know is he made a promise and he'll keep it. Tried to keep this one a little shorter. Some of them said I was getting too long. Just wanted to give you something to think about. Love y'all. Hey, if you will, keep me in the prayers. If you will also, like and share these videos, whether it's off my YouTube or where I put it on Facebook. I just want it to help one person. Good night.